Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Heckling Hollywood podcast. We did not leave you on the side of the road and completely forgot about you. I know it has been 3 months since we last posted, but let's not forget about that. And we'll go on for the rest of the show. Say hi, Jack.
I still love the fact that you do the clap, even though there's no video to sync this with.
Why you gotta ruin everything? We just started.
I know, we just started.
This is why it takes 3 months to get one
I just
podcast
can't
episode
resist.
out.
No, it's because you got lazy.
It's not because I got
It's 'cause
lazy.
you got
It ain't because I got
lazy.
lazy. Don't blame this on
It's because
me.
you got lazy, and then our friend Dylan made a podcast, and you were like, "Oh, I want what you have." Oh no, give me what you have, Dylan, please.
Shout out to the Low Poly podcast.
There you go.
They're
there
doing
we
well.
go. The only podcast, of course, that we can shout out.
Oh yeah, of course. We have to.
They currently probably have less subs than us, but that will quickly change by the next episode.
Yes, yes,
because all of our subs have already left.
they're doing really well. They all go from ours. It's like, oh my god, it's an actual podcast.
Wait, it's an actual podcast with video and everything? Oh, no. Gimme.
But yes, Jack, a happy New Year. Welcome,
New Year to
welcome
you
to the
too.
wonderful year of 2024.
A year of our Lord 2024.
Why our Lord?
I don't know. Wasn't that beat into your Catholic school?
No, nothing was beat into me.
Oh.
I accepted it all willingly.
Such a passive man.
There we go. It just,
Such a passive man.
I was like an empty bucket.
Well, nothing's changed. Cigarette one.
Jack. So yeah, Jack's New Year's resolution was not to quit smoking.
It wasn't, but I'll tell you what, lads. I received an ashtray that's in the shape of an ace of spades, and it has changed my life. It is a wondrous thing. I haven't missed ash at all. I'm not getting ash on the couch. It's a fantastic thing.
Yeah, beforehand, Jack very much did just throw his cigarettes around the entire room and see where they lay.
Oh, that would pile high. Pile high. But Tom, what are we here today to do? Why have we chosen to come back? I believe I checked 120 days later.
120. Yes, we are here to just do a lovely wee recap of 2023. There was a lot of great movies that came out. There was a lot of bad movies that came out. And most importantly, we haven't given people our opinions in some time. So this is the perfect time for us to just spend the next hour giving our complete biased opinions on movie tastes, on both what was the worst films of 2023 and what were the best. Yay, format.
I know everyone doesn't really like worst of lists these days, but I think it's important to note whenever things come out that are just absolutely
Just bad.
woeful. If the tech reviewers can say tech is bad, you shouldn't go see. There are also films that you probably shouldn't see either.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with music. It's the same thing with all art forms. There are objective badness. But I believe, I don't know if your list will be the same because we don't know each other's lists.
Yes.
I believe my list has been chosen primarily not based on the films as a whole, but on just the corporate greed.
Oh, okay.
And overall just distaste I have for for this corporate bollocks.
Okay.
The people who work on them, you're just trying to make a living. We understand this. We're not singling out the gaffer. Don't worry.
Yes.
You did a good job.
Except you, Greg.
Oh, well,
Greg,
yeah.
you did a shit job.
Fuck you, Greg.
Fuck Greg. Hashtag fuck Greg.
Hashtag, I'll get that.
Yeah,
trending.
yeah.
Oh, some poor guy called Greg. Greg's everywhere. We're so sorry, except for you, Greg.
Yeah.
And
You know
which
who
one
you are.
Oh, yes. Tom, would you like to start us off?
Yep.
We're gonna go in a bit of an interesting one. We'll discuss one of our bests, then we'll discuss a worst, back and forth, just so it isn't front loaded with positivity or negativity.
Yes. We'll keep it
go
nice
back and
balanced.
forth. We will.
So yes, I'm starting with my number 3 then. We have top three best and top 3 worst. So
Indeed.
starting with number 3 in the best
Go ahead.
for me is Guardians 3.
Ho!
Yeah.
Discussed Guardians 3. I believe you called it the perfect jumping off point if you were for some reason still watching this slop after Endgame.
It is the perfect hanging noose. I feel like Marvel for the past while have massively peaked. They did a great job. Wow, that's great. And then they just kept trying to push their luck, and they were just making stuff that time after time after time was getting less and less quality. And I brought up with the general idea of if you were a Marvel fan, whenever Endgame came out, that would have been a perfect bookend. Like if you were writing it as like a chapter or a novel, you could close the book on Endgame and you would have a lovely story, lovely experience.
No post-credit scenes. There's no nothing with Endgame. It was designed. I mean, it even had all the cast with their signatures at the end, like in Star Trek 6. This is the end. And just like Star Trek, they couldn't fucking leave Arnold alone. They just had to keep making shit.
But yeah, they continued making stuff. It wasn't getting good. And then through all the back office politics and people changing jobs, James Gunn is now moving over to DC.
To run it. Not just be a filmmaker. He's running the whole damn thing. I don't think this genre is surviving long enough for us to see anything he's making. But
so, best of luck to him.
Best of luck on that sinking Titanic.
As part of that, he had to wrap up his time with Marvel, and his last film with Marvel, I believe, is Guardians 3. Which, if you watch it and you see a lot of the decisions he makes and the kind of through line of the film is him trying to wrap up the Guardian story in a way where it's open if they want to go back to it. But this is him signing off on Marvel, and it has given fans this extra special opportunity of an extra off-ramp. So if you didn't leave whenever Endgame ended, you're getting a second opportunity to end with Guardians 3, close the book, never look at Marvel again, and be like, okay, not absolutely stellar in the end, near the end, but still a solid 8 out of 10 series, group of films, if you just took that as the ending instead.
Well, I think that's the only one where people were still... That was the only one where people were like, okay, well, I want to see what happens. Especially with Endgame, there was the whole hanging thread of there's another Gamora, and there didn't feel like there was an ending there. So I think that was the one thing people were holding out for. I don't really think people were caring where these other characters were going. Like, I know that there's been stuff that have came out, like your Shang-Chi's, and we have the Eternals poster up, and I thought that was pretty decent. But ultimately, it's like, whatever. Who cares? It's done now, and that's fine. That's fine. It's like a TV show towards the end. It's okay for it to die. We both love Californication, but even we had to agree. Oh yeah, no,
Stuff was slipping.
It should have ended when it probably should have ended 2 seasons prior. Yeah. But if it's going to end now, that's absolutely fine. But they didn't. So I would agree. Guardians 3 was there was an interesting thing watching Guardians 3 for me where I could see, now to be fair, what he did with the whole Gamora thing, which wasn't his idea at all. Yeah. Like it clearly annoyed him that he had to include Gamora in the story and not the way he wanted to, because Infinity War went, oh, by the way, they're together now. And he's like, that's not really where I was going with it. So in terms of how he handled other writers coming in and doing stuff with the Guardians, I think he still stuck the landing. But it is kind of interesting to think, well, what if we did just go straight from Guardians to the 3 and there wasn't this big world-ending Infinity War Endgame thing happening? Yeah, because
you have to watch Endgame or Infinity War and Endgame to kind of understand why there's a split between Gamora.
There's a scene where they explain what happened in between, but it's the straight where it's like so much happened for the Guardians in Infinity War and Endgame that it's like it's just so. It's so odd, and to be fair, this is the same issue Disney are having with like Star Wars, Mandalorian season 2 ends, and Baby Yoda goes away, and then for some reason you start season 3, which I haven't watched, but apparently it starts off at he's back now. Yeah, and it's like, oh well, how? Oh, in a different TV show there was an episode dedicated to that. I'm like, wait, what? Wait, what? And I'm like, I can only imagine how confusing this is for people because Marvel did hold on. You didn't really need to watch a lot of movies to just enjoy Guardians 1 or even like Civil War and things like that. Like my mom didn't really watch a lot of the movies, but she likes like Civil War. And she's like, oh, I like that one because it has all the heroes in it. And it's like, it's very easy to understand. As soon as you get to Guardians 3, if you were interested in Guardians, but you didn't watch the Avengers movies, it's like a total fucking, and no harm, but like if you have to sit down and read a Wikipedia article to catch yourself up, that's a character that's being left out that you're not getting to see. And I don't think reading a Wikipedia article is a replacement for that. But he did stick the landing. He did. And I think the final moment between Gamora and Quill is wonderful. Tearjerker. It's so well written. It's so wonderful. And it's such a... what was the last Marvel project we talked about? Secret Invasion?
Secret Invasion.
Such a shocking, a shocking thing to discover these two projects came out the same year.
Yeah.
because it's such a huge difference in quality.
I don't know if it's the same for you. I want to double check. Secret Invasion is the last Marvel thing that I have watched since now.
That would be the same for me. I didn't watch. What came out after that? I think was the Marvels.
Marvels.
No, Loki.
Loki season
Loki
2.
season 2. Didn't, like the first one. Didn't watch it. The Marvels. And then I think Deadpool 3 is the only one that's due to come out next.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the Echo one that came out recently, but
I watched it.
who cares? Who? I think that's the thing. I'm so exhausted now, and there are clearly people who aren't. But this is the unfortunate. You're in the era where your favorite TV show is about to not get as much money as it used to because it isn't as popular as it used to be, and if you're still a fan of it, you kind of have to come to terms with it's not as popular as it used to be, and that's and it means that a lot of stuff that you want to see happen probably won't.
Yeah.
Which is why we're only getting Deadpool 3 next year, which I think has the possibility to be one of the most internet brain thing I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And by that I mean I probably won't see that. And if I do, it's like VOD type shit. Like I'm not doing it, mate.
It goes to show as well for Guardians 3 on how already like our sentiment for a lot of Marvel stuff has changed so much with like watching Secret Invasion, any of that stuff. Throughout the whole year, we have gotten to the point where like we're just not in a good mood whenever it comes to Marvel stuff, but we could still look back fondly to near the start of the year for Guardians 3 and be like, that was still good. That was good. And like you said, they're not going to get as much money anymore. So the idea of getting something like Guardians 3 is going to be less likely as well if they're going to shrink the budgets, if they're going to try and do smaller stories.
Well, I think that's the issue as well, is that just to kind of, I don't want to make this whole podcast just about superhero slop because it's just not interesting anymore.
We're leaving that in 2023.
We'll leave that in 2023, baby. But I think that's what, because it's not like I'd be very intrigued to see what Matt Reeves does with the sequel to the Batman, because that's a totally separate thing. It's its own universe. He's doing his own thing with it. And I think ultimately these projects can be really interesting if you just let them do what they want to do. The Nolan trilogy would not be nearly as interesting if Warner Brothers didn't just say, listen, we don't know what we're doing. Just you go ahead, and those are Nolan movies through and through. There is no difference to me between The Dark Knight and like Tenet or even Oppenheimer. That is a director's vision right there.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, I just can't say that. Like even something like Shang-Chi or the Eternals, I think had more style than Shang-Chi. There's just this crushing idea where all these projects don't have any sort of voice. It's like TV. It's like bad TV where there is no style and there's no flavor. It's just, here's a script and film it, and here's 13,000 cameos. It's like, it's like, who cares? Who cares? So we're leaving it in 2023.
Yeah.
James Gunn, fantastic.
Did a good job.
I don't think there was any doubt that it was going to be it was going to be great, because the Guardians movies in general were a franchise that were on the other end of the universe. They're on their own. Leave them to their own devices. They can be weird and kooky, and they don't have to have, I don't know, Captain America's corpse show up. Sleepy Joe Biden. I don't know. Whatever. Let's get away from it. We're done with it. We're done with it.
Well, we'll move on now to your number 3 for top films of 2023.
Number 3, and this might shock you, especially with what's happened recently with it, where I think it may have just ended up killing everything. Scream 6.
Oh wow,
Scream 6. Because obviously Scream 4 was the last film that Wes Craven directed before he passed away. For the longest time, that was 2011, I believe, which I went to see that one in theaters as well. That was the end of the franchise. That was it for ages. There was a TV show on MTV, but for films, that was pretty much it. In 2022, Scream 5 came out, just titled Scream. And I liked it, but I wasn't too fussed on it. I think it was like a perfectly serviceable, fun film, but not really too memorable. And then Scream 6 came out, and I watched it on a whim, and I was like, okay, I'll just stick it on, and I was blown away. I was sitting there going, this is, because we've had our, we had Creed 3, we had John Wick 4, we've had franchise films that build on everything and are equally as impressive as what came before. But something about Scream 6 just felt so doing what the formula does to a perfect extent. We always talk about films that just do what they are meant to do very well. They don't overly excel, but they are so good at what they do that you can't help but just be absolutely impressed by it. And that's Scream 6 to me. I thought all the characters were a lot better than they were in 5. They had more to do. I love the fact that the film just doesn't let up, whether you're daytime, nighttime. Like, it's just constant, like, tension. Like, who's the killer? And then there's always going to be this threat of violence. There's an opening that goes on for a while, but it's so tension-filled because you know something's going to happen. Just filled with surprises. And then the ending is absolutely ludicrous. Like, I'd recommend watching it for the ending.
Ludicrous
alone.
is in this?
No, unfortunately not.
It's not that ludicrous.
No. That he's I don't know. He'll be making Fast and Furious movies for the rest of his life until he is so old that he's no longer fast and no longer furious.
But he's always ludicrous.
He's always absolutely ludicrous. But no, the ending of Scream 6 is absolutely wonderful. It is hammy in the best way. If people haven't seen it, I would absolutely recommend it, considering I think this will be the last movie in this timeline because due to Israel-Palestine, the main actress was let go for her support of Palestine, and then that caused Jenna Ortega, which she says was due to scheduling conflicts with Wednesday, that caused her to be let go. And then Skydance went, Courtney Cox and Neve Campbell, do you want to come back? And they both said no. So like nobody wants to come back for this. I think they're just going to do a reboot. And then the director of Happy Death Day, he was going to do it, but then he left the project because of everything going on. So I've never seen a project make me so hyped, because like I think even in my review I was like, oh, I can't wait for the seventh one. And they have just utterly, like, it went up in flames within a week. I'm shocked by it. But yeah, Scream 6. So we're leaving Marvel and Scream in 2023 apparently, but they went out on a good note.
They both went out well. Well, that's the good thing to see, is that these are projects that even if they don't continue into the future, we had really good entries to it. Like, I've not really watched a lot of Scream. I didn't watch a lot of horror growing up, so I'm only starting to get into it. I believe Scream 6 just passed my radar. I did watch it. But I do remember you speaking so positively about it right after watching it and just being like, oh, this is great. This is lovely. And I mind you, before bringing up like the problems with people leaving the project now. So it's sad to see that bookend, but it's still really cool that they were able to bring that out of the bag.
It does,
on like the 6th entry.
Totally. It does touch on as well, because it's a similar thing, because of course James Gunn got ousted from Disney for a while due to the old tweets resurfacing. And I think it's crazy that you can have these films that are very good, and then these outside forces come in, and it's the studio kind of mentality of let's just make these decisions willy-nilly. We're not gonna take into account any sort of context. It's just like these immediate rash decisions, and it just ends up absolutely failing and falling flat in their face. And I think that's what's happening with Marvel. It's definitely what happens with Skydance and Scream. And you will see it more as we get into the worst.
Yes.
Which is what we're going to get into now. So, Tom, do you want to reveal what your third worst is?
Yeah. No. Let's see. So my third worst, I feel like everybody here is going to already know it because we have covered it on the podcast, you keen listeners. Meg 2. Meg 2 is number 3 of my worst. Hey, Jack, that's a massive compliment that it wasn't number 1. There were actually worse films that came out this year than Meg 2.
I simply do not believe you. Simply do not believe you. You had too much fun watching it.
Well, that's why it's number 3, because I went through my list and I was looking, even some of the bad entries that were just undefiably bad were like not as bad as Meg 2. But I always had to give Meg 2 the caveat of we kind of had a lot of fun. Yeah, we had a lot of fun with it. But at the same time, that wasn't really intentional. It was like by the movie. Was it?
Are you kidding?
Well, to be fair, it's a sequel.
The movie had a shot where a couple were paddling.
Yes.
And it was in this wide shot, and then the Meg just went home. And Jason Statham is constantly saying one-liners. Like, the movie is clearly knows it's a farce.
Okay, well, I don't know.
But also, I don't think that matters.
Really?
That's my. I don't know if
That's
it's a
your
hot take or not.
yeah.
If a movie, because there's always talk about death of the author, authorial intent. At the end of the day, if a movie makes you feel a certain way, like The Room is technically a really bad movie.
Yeah.
But people love it. Maybe a little bit too much with the throwing and everything up at screenings. But people love it. And in that sense, I'm like, okay, well, it can't be the worst film ever made.
Yeah.
The worst film ever made to me would be one that just doesn't ignite any emotion. Because if it ignites hatred, I'm like, well, hold on a
Yeah,
minute.
it's still doing something.
It's still doing something. But yeah, I don't know if it's fair, but I can see where that confusion is there, because you're like, oh, well, was it intentional? If it wasn't intentional, well, that means it's bad, right? But I see where you are coming from. I just don't buy it, because we did have fun.
We did have fun, and I can't deny that. And
But
I think that's why
you had to do it for the movie.
yeah,
It's okay.
it had to be on the list.
I'm a Meg defender.
You are.
I need to get a t-shirt made.
And to be fair, Jason Statham is now for 2024 is currently in a film called The Beekeeper.
We've got to go see The Beekeeper.
The Beekeeper actually looks worse than the Meg films.
We've got to go see The Beekeeper. Comment below if you want us to go and see The Beekeeper.
Yeah, it's, what? I'll do the target super low. 5 likes and we go see The Beekeeper.
I think it's coming out on VOD on like the 30th of January, so we don't even need to go to the cinema.
There we go.
We could just watch it in the comfort of our home.
Don't worry. But yeah, Jason Statham's always going to be in these cheap, schlocky, bad films, and fair play to him for doing it. But
he always brings his all. I never feel like he's like a Steven Seagal, or I'm trying to think of another actor, or I hate to say, but even before his diagnosis, Bruce Willis
yeah,
did a lot of crap, and he really was not bringing his A game whatsoever. Jason Statham is always up for it. He's always ready for it. He was in oh god, what was he in? He works with Guy Ritchie quite a bit.
Yeah.
And he was in a film, I can't remember now, but it had Josh Hartnett in it, and it was like this wonderful little caper, like heist film. And he just totally, he's Jason Statham. He's not playing any sort of character. But he is, to me, the closest we have to like a movie star.
Yeah, I get that.
Because like, I think Keanu Reeves is, and the John Wick movies cost too much to really be B movies.
What's interesting to me, you've seen the video, Patrick H. Willems, YouTuber, has a video discussing why Ryan Reynolds and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson make such like meh movies, and was bringing along the idea of these two actors now have very large brands, so the majority of the time they're just trying to make movies that will agree to put their product placement in it, and it just becomes a product.
Well, it's not even agree. I mean, these are the movies that they produce.
Nah,
I mean, they're
producing.
the ones that are, and I completely understand that from a business perspective.
Yeah.
However, these movies are, because it used to be, like, let's be fair, the idea of the movie stars, when we watched Babylon last year, fucking Babylon Brigade, there's a full scene in it where the actor, Jack Conrad, played by Brad Pitt, is on the phone to an actress and trying to get her to star in a film for below a certain amount of money. So he's clearly, like, that's his movie. He's helping produce it. So the idea of the actor, making their own, Margot Robbie was a producer on Barbie. That you make your own projects.
Yeah.
You produce your own projects. There's something about the insidious nature of what The Rock do and Ryan Reynolds, where these two are actually very capable actors. And The Rock is, I believe, working with one of the Safdie brothers, I think, on a wrestling film for A24. So I think even The Rock has said, and I think Black Adam may have broke him.
Yeah.
Where he's like, he does want to do more interesting work. And Ryan Reynolds is perfectly capable of it as well, but I think Ryan Reynolds isn't quite at that point yet.
But what I was going to say as an interesting point on all that is, if you tried to use the same logic or the same framework to Jason Statham, I'm just sitting there and it's like, what's he selling? He is doing the same type of system of like just getting these movies or being in these movies where he has the star role, like you said, like a B movie star. But he's not doing that for like.
See, this is the thing.
He's not doing it for a product.
The movies that he makes,
yeah,
are a trillion times more entertaining,
Yeah.
and more engaging than like. Do you remember Red Notice?
Not at all.
Like
Not
that
even a
had
little.
Ryan Reynolds and The Rock. It had Gal Gadot in it. I don't remember Gal Gadot's project either, because these are movies that are like pre-built. Like Ana de Armas and Chris Evans was in Ghosted. I believe that was last year as well. And it's just these forgettable movies that just don't. That I don't think had any passion in them. The Beekeeper is made by David Ayer, who made Suicide Squad, but he's made like he wrote Training Day.
Okay.
So there's a lot of good stuff David Ayer's done. I'm trying to remember the name of the person who made Ben. Oh, I can't remember. He did High Rise. He directed the Meg too. And you can tell there is some. I'm not going to say it's an authorial masterpiece, but there clearly is an element of okay, we're just going to have fun here, and that's what Jason Statham stars in. All these movie stars like The Rock or Ryan Reynolds who say, "Yeah, we're just going to make 4-quadrant, fun films." I'm like, these are boring.
Yeah,
these are boring. They're bland. They're not the kind of thing that are going to be remembered. Whereas I think a lot of Jason Statham's work will actually be remembered in small by fewer. Actually, you know what? Fuck it. By more people.
Yeah.
Because the masses will turn on Netflix, watch a Rock film, and go, "That was fun." Anyway, and then completely forget about it. The people who follow Statham, they're gonna remember The Beekeeper.
Yeah.
They're gonna remember. Oh, that's a trash film. Oh yeah, let's put that on. Let's put that on.
Like
But
you've already said, you want a T-shirt of Meg too. You're kind of proving the point.
you know what? Like Meg defender, Statham defender. Like I am a Statham head.
Yeah.
All the way through. I absolutely love it. So I disagree.
You disagree.
I disagree.
That's fair, but it brought up interesting conversation.
It did bring up an interesting conversation that Ryan Reynolds and The Rock are absolute
are far worse.
Are absolute corporate donkheads that need to start starring in better work again.
But now on to you, Jack. What is your third worst film of 2023?
Third worst film of the year, because there actually is some interesting stuff in there, and I always love to see my boy work. But it's going to be Rebel Moon.
Okay.
Rebel Moon, and this goes into my idea of I hate corporations who just see things and they just want to. It's the same thing with the Pop-Tart mascot. The Pop-Tart mascot was such a success, and every other business tried to make their own version and failed horribly. Why? Because you can't do it again.
You can't catch lightning in a bottle twice.
So Snyder is known these days for the Snyder Cut and the Snyder cultists, as they are. So whenever they finally got their win of like, oh, the Snyder Cut got released, I swear Netflix said, well, we'll give you your own Star Wars. It'll be 2 parts, but can you make a more family-friendly version, more of a blockbuster version, and you can have your R-rated version later? The R-rated version is coming this summer, after part 2's already been out. I don't know if they're going to do a combined version or if they're going to release both R-rated parts together. But this version that we have is just over 2 hours, I think 2 hours 15. It's been hacked to pieces. There's no sense of geometry to any of the action. There's no sense of character to anything. It's like they removed all of the character elements to it, and now we just have a film that is based purely on plot. A to B to C to D, and at the end of it I go, who gives a fuck? And there's issues with it that are specifically Snyder, aka please hire a cinematographer again and stop using those really shallow depth of field lenses. Please. Something in this film, like, it actually does look horrible sometimes. But overall, it's clear that it's such a strange thing, because usually films, it used to be a case where, like I think Orson Welles' Magnificent Ambersons, he was in another country and they said, you need to come back now. They're going to take Ambersons away and they're going to cut it, and they're going to leave you on the cutting room floor. And he just didn't come back, and they took the film from him and cut it. Usually films have to be wrestled away from directors. And in this case, Snyder just went, here. Yeah. Because he knows he's going to get his version out, and that's fine.
Yeah, so he doesn't care about the result of this one?
He doesn't care about the result of this one, but this is just... I think it's just not fair. It's like a film should be something that you release and that you're proud of, that one singular thing. It shouldn't have versions. It shouldn't have... Video games don't seem to have this issue. It's not like you get a bloodless version of Call of Duty. Modern Warfare 2 didn't release all the way back. Was it 2009? It didn't release in versions that didn't have the airport sequence in it.
Yeah.
It's like, no, the game's the game. And when you get it, you're playing the game. It is what it is. but it really did annoy me the more I watched it, because I know there is parts of it that are totally on Snyder, but mostly it's just the fact that Netflix even tried to have their own version of the Snyder Cut. You produce crap that will be forgotten about immediately. You don't allow physical releases. You don't want your films to be in theaters because you see them as direct competition, and that's why ultimately you're gonna bankrupt yourself. You cannot afford to keep doing this. Even Apple releases films in theaters to at least recoup some of the cost. They don't expect to get all their money back, but they're recouping quite a bit of it. And then Netflix just spend $200 million on this, on Red Notice, on all this stuff, and it's like, well, at least with this there was some clear directorial intent and there was some authorship, but it just ends up being a waste. And I now have to wait 6 months, and I don't even know if I'll have the heart at that point. I don't even know, because the movie ended and I was like, oh, that's right, there's a part 2. But why? It's just I was saddened by it, and that's going to be a running theme throughout my worst list, where it's not so much the film, it's just so
it's the
clear.
business around it.
It's the business around it, and it was just so bleh. Well, that might not be true with my next pick. That might just be
It might just be Rebel Moon.
It's Rebel Moon all for all.
It's Rebel Moon all the way down.
But no, that we've been negative for long enough. Let's get back onto some of our best. So, Tom, what is your second best of the year?
Yeah, my second best for the year will be a nice wee one to discuss. It is Asteroid City.
Asteroid City, interesting.
Yeah, Asteroid City is one of those films that the more I kind of thought about it, the more I realized that it had like an impact on me, and that I left the film experience like the same way I would leave a live play. So a lot of the times you'll come out of the movie theater and you'll just be like, oh, that was a nice movie, that was all good, that was that. But with Asteroid City, I remember leaving and still having like a feeling in my stomach of like, I'm still going to sit here and kind of try and process what this movie brought up. Because for anybody who hasn't seen it, the structure of the film plays a lot to the absurdity of how we frame things in everyday life. The film is a play recounting. The film is a film as a documentary recounting a play about an actual event.
You might just want to watch it.
Yeah, you'll get that, but you'll understand that the layers that kind of come in put you into this weird framing device where suddenly people who are actors are actual actors in the scene of the play and not just playing a character, and things go around, and it allows you to like explore these dimensions and stuff happens. It's like trying to describe to somebody what a drug trip might be, because I'm trying to sit here and be like, and the fractals of the dimensions and the feelings. But
the strangest thing about Asteroid City and Wes Anderson in general is it's especially true of something like The French Dispatch in this, where I feel like this decade in general for him has been taking that artificial style that he has, and really taking it to the nth degree. Because I know a criticism of Anderson in the past has been, as his films have gone on, they have brought in more of that artifice, and more of that let's peek behind the scenes. So it's not something like Bottle Rocket or the Life Aquatic Steve Zissou or Royal Tenenbaums. It's not like that anymore. It's not just real life with a bit of style and verve. It's now clearly, I think the last film he done with any sense of like that was Darjeeling Limited. So it's clear he's gone away from that. So no, not all Wes Anderson films are the same. But the reason I wanted to bring it up was because you're having a hard time trying to describe it.
Yes.
Whenever you watch it, it's one of those strange things where it's like the Austin Powers Club. It's like, I suggest you don't try to think about it too hard. Just enjoy yourself. And that's so true. Like what the film, and I'm not going to sit here and claim to understand everything that it was trafficking in. But it just glides along, and you're never going, wait, but what's happening? But why is this?
You're able to follow it. You're able to.
You're never thinking. And it's going to sound so weird. I was feeling it throughout. I was never questioning anything that I didn't quite understand. I didn't sit there and go, what does that mean? It's like there's no point.
Like
just accept.
especially with the amount of artifice and like the layers of abstraction that it adds to it, and the idea of settling in, getting comfortable, feeling it,
Yeah.
is that one of the core things they repeated it. I believe, if this is right, it was like the weird problem you get whenever trying to fall asleep makes it more difficult to fall asleep. And I feel like they had something like a similar repeated phrase in it, to go to pretty much show that same situation of, if you try to trying to find the emotion in this film by doing it analytically is going to take you away from the emotion. So the best thing you can do is just sit there, feel the emotion, and then you'll get the point of the film and you'll get what he's trying to convey.
Wes Anderson films, that's the ironic thing, is that he continually deals with this idea of loss, whether that be a loss of an actual person in your life, a family member, a loved one, whether it be with the loss of innocence. He continually deals with these very heavy themes. And it's not that he tries to sand over them and make it all very cute and wonderful, which is why those TikTok Wes Anderson
videos.
It's like, fundamentally, I agree with somebody who said, "Oh, he would hate these."
Yeah.
Because it fundamentally doesn't. It's not a pretentious thing. It's such a simplistic thing, and it's ultimately why, to me, Wes Anderson's style is the least interesting thing about him, because the way his films flow, they are constantly, these characters are not happy. They're constantly trying to search for this idea of meaning in this world that is so artificial.
Yeah.
And I'm sure whenever you lose someone, or there is this sense of loss in your life, you do end up walking around and you start to kind of look at things differently. You start to notice things that you wouldn't maybe before. You start to notice, you look in the corners of the room and you start to see mold forming, and you start to see just all this stuff that make you realize, oh yeah, like we're in an apartment right now, but an apartment is just four walls and there's a door, and it's just it makes you look at things in a very peculiar way. And I suppose that's where all these, Bryan Cranston being a narrator type, there's this scene which is absolutely amazing. I'm sure it's been put around constantly by now, but Jason Schwartzman and Margot Robbie on the balconies of the two, where they're doing separate performances and they just have this conversation, and it's so strange. Like, it's almost like I can barely remember the conversation, but what I do remember is it's just shot and they're looking directly into the camera, and it's like they're talking directly to you. It almost doesn't matter what they're saying. That's easily, like, those two could have been nominated for best of the year in terms of performances. Just like how they were looking at each other and thus looking at us. Impeccable. And that's what I mean, where you don't have to think.
Yeah.
Just watch and take it in, and you will, and that's what you were feeling.
Yeah.
You were feeling that because you weren't trying to you weren't trying to intellectualize it.
Yeah.
Which is overtly, there's plenty to do in a Wes Anderson film, more so than me or you are smart enough to ever look for all the little things he does. He's clearly a very eloquent man, but he's so good despite that, despite all this fancy stuff. It's always about the emotion. It's always about the heart. So great pick. Absolutely great pick.
Good vibes.
Good vibes.
Wes Anderson passed the vibe check and made his way onto my number 2 spot. Well done. Good job. And
let's talk about Killers of the Flower Moon.
Your number 2 is Killers of the Flower Moon.
Because Killers of the Flower Moon, it's funny that we talked about Wes Anderson and this idea of loss, because now we have a 3.5 hour film that is all about that, and you're seeing it happen. It feels like watching a slow motion car crash, because you are watching from the only sequence in the film that actually brought like any kind of joy was the beginning, where the opening film is them finding the oil.
Yeah.
And they're bathing in it, and it's like, oh, this lovely thing where these people have stumbled upon absolute riches.
Yeah.
But immediately from the onset, we see, no, but the white man tells them where they can go, where they can't go, how much money they can get. They have to continually ask the white man for what is rightfully theirs. And it's just it's the most insidious takedown of a capitalist society that I've ever seen.
Yeah.
It is 3.5 hours, and I felt absolutely woeful throughout it.
Well, even with the beginning, as you say, is I guess the only moment of joy that is also brought as a point. Like, even before it shows the slow motion shot, it is like a meeting of like some of the elders, basically saying that like the end of our time is coming. They are going to, it was like integrate.
Our children will learn the ways of the
Differently.
white man. They will learn the language. It's not going to be like it was, and no matter how hard they
But
try it won't
what's
be
interesting
possible.
then is having like the joyous moment, which would be, I don't know, in a traditional narrative of like, oh, you found the spoils of gold, you've saved the day, that's good. Technically, the beginning of the end and the beginning of the film is the acquiring of gold, or acquiring of oil, and the acquiring of money. What would be traditionally getting the money, end film, everyone lived happily ever after, is the beginning of a horrible ending for these people who kind of already understand that this is coming by the way they talk at the beginning, that this is going to change, and they don't realize how far or how much it's going to change by the time we actually see it at the end.
It's so interesting as well because you compare it to how when oil is struck in movies like, for example, There Will Be Blood, it is completely. There's that great shot in There Will Be Blood when the oil just bursts and it's just it's Daniel Plainview watching this fire burn, and yet he's just covered in this in this oil, and it's just like, I'm gonna sell, so I'm gonna become the richest man. I'm gonna just. It's just pure greed, and yet these people, and again, oil is nothing if you can't sell it, and that's what our minds would be, because that's how we see, and very much in the modern day, that's what oil is. Because you're always like, invest in oil, and yet these people, they like dance in it. They go, oh, like the ground has given us something, and they treat the oil as if it was anything else. They don't treat it as this money thing, but as soon as money comes in, and to be fair, They clearly take the money and they buy nice clothes and they buy nice outfits, but there's this continuous like, especially with Molly in the film, who just does an absolutely fantastic, Gladstone does a fantastic job. There's just always this very like put up the walls, put up this wall, because
Defenses.
you just never know what's gonna happen. And yet there's also this warmth where she sees Ernest and she like smiles a little, and she does. The movie doesn't try and make these characters just these are good, these are bad, even though it doesn't have to. These people are clearly like, the Ernest especially. I think you don't get to get off free because you're oblivious, or you pretend you're oblivious. But Molly having that conversation with her sisters and her friends, it's like, oh, I like him. It's like, that's so legitimate. And it's so like, oh, maybe it'll be different. And then you just see like all like her family just dying, aka being murdered, or like, and then she's slowly being poisoned, and it's a tough watch, but it's so eye-opening, and it's so raw and strong, and I couldn't love it any more than I already do, because it's so. I just don't. Scorsese, I think, has just. It's hard to talk about. It really is, because
since you're audio, he is actually crying. He is in complete tears.
There's tears.
He has his rosary beads at the shrine of Martin Scorsese that we added into our house.
I just saw it. I was like, we're so back.
We're so back.
It's so wonderful. And then, of course, I'll not spoil the ending in case anybody hasn't seen it, but the ending is
really good.
Anything that you may be thinking about this movie and how unsure are you of how Scorsese handles this material, because there's a culture, there's a community of people that are not like him, and it takes a deft hand, and he does it in a very interesting way by wrapping it up, and he let's just say he indicts himself, and he indicts the audience, and I'll say it's kind of similar to how he ended The Wolf of Wall Street. In that Jordan Belfort's still out there and he's still going around, and the last shot of the movie isn't Belfort.
It's the audience.
It's all the audience that are still watching him and still buying into his bullshit. And that's you.
That's you,
That's
fella.
all of you. And it's Scorsese once again, in his late career, he's not resting on laurels. He's not just making films for the sake of it. He's making what he wants to make, and he's still saying things all these years later. As he's 80, like he should be resting. He should have like easily taken a victory lap, and yet he's still doing it.
Keeps going.
I'm so sad that we have to talk about shit now.
But yes, it's really good to see Martin Scorsese's phenomenal work addressing the audience and showing a mirror on how they are complicit in the things that are happening in the films and having them reflect on that. And that's why we'd like to call out our audience for this week's sponsor. Yay! This week's sponsor, or Jack, you want to tell us?
Manscaped.
It's Manscaped, baby. No, we are not affiliated with Manscaped in any way, shape, or form, but we would very much like to, because I have a bald head that needs cleaned. Shout out.
Do you have the Weed Whacker 2.0?
I believe I have the Weed Whacker 3.0.
Okay, aren't they on the 5?
They're on the 5. They're on the 5.
Amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
This is not an ad.
Tell me about the
alarm,
Weed Whacker.
alarm bells. Well, the Weed Whacker.
Like, and you can use it like on your head, your face, on your,
Oh yeah, on the rest of the body.
On your downstairs. And it doesn't cut you.
It doesn't cut you.
It doesn't cut you. It's smooth as shit.
It doesn't cut, just like the Spielberg waters we will continue to talk about later on.
Spielberg has such style in it.
He has so much style.
Such style.
Such riz.
Unfortunately, he didn't break out a film.
Yeah, no, there was no film this year, so that's why my number one is West Side Story, which did not come out. I want to address them before we go into the bad, because this is going to even stuff out negatively. My number one is Killers of the Flower Moon, so that's technically all the good movies that came out. We can talk about it more once it comes back to that, or we have some honorable mentions in case something like this happened.
It's a really, the more you it's one of those ones as well. And by the way, guys, it just came out on
VOD.
It's been out on premium VOD for a while, but it just came out on Apple TV Plus, so you can stream it there. If you've bought a piece of technology in the last year, you most likely haven't redeemed your 6 months free Apple TV Plus, so you don't have to spend a penny. You can see it on your beautiful televisions. Please don't watch it on your fucking telephone. please don't. Not for free.
Don't watch it on your Switch.
Don't watch it on your Switch. Sit down, put the kids to bed. I don't know. Put on some headphones so your annoying
engrossed.
family don't annoy you.
Yeah.
And just engross yourself and feel absolutely fucking horrendous for what you did. Mm-hmm. This is all your fault.
Yes.
And done. Tom.
Okay.
Please talk about terrible this time.
This is going to be really funny because I had assumed this is in your bottom three, but it's my number two. Is Five Nights at Freddy's.
Five Nights at Freddy's is my worst film of the year.
Oh, really?
It's my worst film of the year. It was such garbage.
It was so bad.
And I'm going to say, Tom, because we sat, but I know you knew the lore beforehand, and I did look up some lore.
Yeah.
The lore can get quite interesting, and I was talking about how you could do a Cronenbergian body horror style thing. Like, this could be so interesting. And what they gave us was the most corporate piece of shit.
Yeah.
It's so bad. I would have rather watched... Blumhouse was popular for, especially throughout the 2010s, bringing out some absolute drivel in terms of horror, like The Gallows and things like that. I take any one of them. I take any one. It's Sinister 2. I take any of that crap. Not Sinister as well. Sinister 2, the actual sequel to Sinister.
Okay,
Sinister's good. Just oh man, like just everything about it. Just
it did. It felt like very much like a direct to VOD or direct to be fair, DVD type movie.
It did go direct to streaming
as
well as being in the cinema. So, but I suppose that's the thing with it, is that when a movie this bad does well, I then have to go, right, fair, but doesn't that make you want to make something better?
Yeah.
But then I also know that, what do people, and I said this to you before we watched it, what do people know about Five Nights at Freddy's? They know what the animatronics are
fun Chuck E. Cheese characters come to life.
There you go.
But
they don't know. They don't know about man who doesn't have any bones. Who slurps. They don't know about any of this. They don't know about the deep lore.
All the William Afton stuff.
Yeah, they don't know about any of that crap. So you make a film about that, they go, "This isn't Five Nights at Freddy's." Like, no, yes, it is.
Yes,
it is. But nobody cares about that. I'm sorry, gamers can't prop up your movie. There's not. There's not enough.
Yeah.
Just I don't know, Matt. Do you have anything really
No,
interesting to say
I feel
outside
like
of corporate greed?
no. You had a really good point whenever we were watching it that the problem here was they wanted to try and make both a commercially successful film for younger audiences, but also wanted to make it scary, which meant the majority of anything that built tension or could be considered like scary really always like had such a soft hit to it, or it just always fell flat because it always had to be like, oh, build tension, and scary thing that happens off screen and you see the shadow because we can't show any blood or we can't show mutilation because this is kid friendly, PG-13.
There was one use of shadow that I was just like,
It was
more
good.
of this, but mostly it was just cut to another scene
Yeah.
and do this, and it just really removed any. Like, and I think I just started complaining and just saying, Tom,
Yeah.
why can't back in the 90s they had Happy Meal toys for RoboCop. RoboCop is an R-rated film where you see a guy like dissolve in acid,
Yeah.
and you see a guy get like fall out a window, and a guy gets like fucking blasted and falls on a makeshift model of a city, like just absolutely horrible things. Show your kids that.
Yeah.
Show your kids that and explain to them. I kid you not, Tom, the amount of people who work, especially in the horror industry, who say, I was 9 or 10 and I watched this film and I was obsessed with the gore effects in it. And they then went on. I say, man, when I was on Facebook, the amount of people I see, especially from even up in Derry, who are interested in this like gore makeup.
Yeah.
A girl we know from Oma Kira. She's very interested. She's done some gore effects for me on my film.
Oh, right.
That clearly doesn't come from you didn't just stumble upon that at 18.
Yeah.
Clearly, like, you were young and you like the look of this stuff, and of course Halloween plays a part in that. There's some Halloween makeup that kids wear that were more graphic
Yeah.
than what was in this film. So this is not even about the film anymore, but it just goes to show, what are you protecting kids from? It's you're protecting them from not having to have a conversation with them and say, this isn't real.
Yeah.
But this is why you feel this way when watching it. And it can just actually, it can promote, here's my hot take, it could promote a healthier society if you didn't demonize this stuff. Because
Yeah.
this stuff is make-believe. This stuff is horror. And there's some great horror movies that you can show your kids that aren't, like, you could say that like the first Paranormal Activity, that is what Five Nights at Freddy's kind of should have been. Like
Yeah.
a found footage type thing, like the game kind of is. But instead we get the young girl dancing with the kid. That kid would have fucking died if I made this.
Yeah.
That kid would have got slaughtered. 100%.
Did Jack pitching any film? We're gonna have the kid dead by page 5. I hope you're all cool with that.
I won't kill the animals. That's
No, never kill the animals.
I'll draw the line.
Yeah.
The dog doesn't die. The children, however.
Aye.
But that's not even the strange thing as well, because as far as I know, kids really like the It movie.
Yeah.
Like, the kids really like the It movie. And like, I think that was rated R, and that's about kids dying. I don't know. I honestly don't know what the ratings board wants in America, because I know this is, mainly an American
Yeah.
film.
Well, the problem that happened here as well is that it was rated, what is it, like PG-13 in America, but that was technically like a 15 here.
yeah.
Yeah. So I have friends that have worked in cinemas, and they said that like on shift they had to like reject kids to go from going to see it. They're like, you're not with your or it's like even with their parent they weren't allowed in because it was 15. So even in that way they were trying to make it more easily friendly for an American audience to go see it.
Yeah.
But that still didn't meet our
Which is-
headlines. So they just missed out on an audience anyways and could have just went full rated R, rated 18 here. Kids aren't going to see it anyways. But at least now you can go the
Well,
distance.
that's the irony, because there are films that are rated R in America that are 15 here.
Yeah.
So it's this strange thing where I'm thinking, what did the UK see in this film that made it deserve a 15?
Matt Pat.
That fucking face. No wonder he's retiring. Fucking horrifying.
We love you, Matt Pat.
No, we don't.
This is Jack Summer. That man did 13 years in NAM. Well, no, he did 13 years. 13 years on
Thank
YouTube.
you for your service, Matt Pat.
The YouTube equivalent of NAM, which was before the apocalypse.
No, the Apocalypse was the version.
That was the NAM.
Man, that's actually shocking. 15, and it was. Do you know what was also rated 15 over here?
What?
Logan.
Oh, really?
And Logan had like blood. It had people stabbing. He stabbed a guy in the eye, like proper gnarly shit. Not extremely gnarly. Like
Yeah.
again, like you're not. I'm not saying show your kids The Fly,
Yeah.
or Scanners, or like any of these movies. Well, actually, no.
Yeah, I'm thinking about it.
I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I think it's because they always want to go. Oh, okay, well, because Five Nights at Freddy's. It always comes back to the video game market has never been as much of a stickler for ratings because the most successful games of all time are for adults,
Yes.
quote unquote. So whenever it comes to this, they go, well, kids mostly play Five Nights at Freddy's. That's like, yeah, but then in terms of how your theatrical market does, like, oh, but the films board are more important because more people watch movies than play games.
It's the idea that whenever advertising, there was like a car company thing I heard over Christmas, but like whenever a car company is advertising to 60-year-olds plus, they're not going to put a 60-year-old in the advertisement. They're going to put a 20-year-old because the 60-year-old will want to feel young. And so they'll want to feel like the 20-year-old. And also as a byproduct, if a 20-year-old sees the same advert and sees the 20-year-old, they're like, oh, well, maybe it's okay for us. Whereas if they put a 60-year-old in, the 60-year-old is like, I don't want to drive that because the old lady drives it. And the 20-year-old would be the exact same. I don't want to drive it. The old lady's in it. So I feel like Five Nights at Freddy's has that exact same problem of like the kids might not actually enjoy it because they're like, oh, it's made for kids. It's no good. And
Because they had all the kids in the movie.
Yeah.
And I think Jay or Mike might have said it from RLM. When you were younger, what movies did you want to see? Did you want to see the movies that had kids in it? Was that a selling point for you? It's like, no. Kids don't really care if they see kids in movies or not. Like, kids don't aspire to be Kid Man. They aspire to be Action Man.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if it's the same thing nowadays, but I'm pretty sure that, you know, young girls didn't want to be just another young girl. They wanted to be like this woman that they looked up to. You know, you want to be, whenever you're a kid, you want to be an adult.
Yeah.
It's the biggest scam of all time. But you want to be an adult, and that's why all these, you know, films are popular. It's why they don't have a kid presenting Blue Peter. It's like you have a young adult, and it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you're gonna take us through things. Whenever I think about Five Nights at Freddy's, it's just I don't know what they were thinking, but I also know that the guy who actually created the games did have a part to play in it, which made it even worse because I look at the director, who was a woman, and I'm like, oh, fair. That's a very
You said that like Gonzo at the end of the Muppets Christmas Carol. Who did not die.
Who did not die. I love that that's actually in the book.
Yeah.
That's my favorite thing.
And the director, who was a woman.
Who was a woman. Well, that's the thing is that I go, oh, that's curious. Like, I don't know what the female demographic of Five Nights at Freddy's the game series is, but can I see her take? I want to see what she would have done. And I just know that it was just this guy who was saying, oh, we should do this, this, and this. And she was like, okay. Hope she got paid well for it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't show off anything. I think of Megan from a couple of years ago. Megan was great. Megan was fantastic. And I think that was PG-13. And that's an exact, and it got the social media buzz. You had Megan, you know, all the publicity. I feel like they just didn't do anything with this. The movie didn't hold up to whatever they were marketing it as. I'm kind of done with it. It's just, it was so bad. If I could give it less, I would.
Well, what's interesting now, for us to continue, is that Killers of the Flower Moon was my number one. So the top list is kind of done. We can have it written on screen. Jack do editing work. And my number two was your number one. So technically all we have left is your number two for the worst. And then we filled out.
I haven't said my best.
Oh, you haven't said your best?
No.
Oh, okay. Interesting. All right. So that would be the next one. And then we end with your...
That's correct.
With my worst. Yes, because I still have my worst.
Yeah, and I still have my worst.
I thought Five
Oh,
Nights.
sorry, I have my second worst.
Yeah, you have your second.
My second
Yeah,
worst, and then
this is getting flip flop because we got one.
because we had some crossover.
Well, talk about your best, and then we'll figure out the rest. Yeah, right.
Tom, you knew it was coming. It's David Fincher's The Killer.
It's the killer.
It's The Killer. I've watched it 10 times.
I knew it would be your number one.
I have watched it more than any film this year. I may have watched The Irishman an additional
Maybe
3 or 4
seconds.
times because that's also a favorite because Scorsese's great. But The Killer, under 2 hours, absolutely fantastic. I've started getting into Jean-Pierre Melville, which inspired this film. I adore it. I adore it. It goes down. I don't drink a lot of hard liquor, but I assume people who are really into their scotch or their whiskey, and they say, "Oh, it just goes down so smooth." Don't fucking know what they're talking about. It tastes fucking horrible. It burns my throat.
Tastes like lighter fluid.
But it tastes like lighter fluid. The Killer feels like lighter fluid, but it go down smooth. It's wonderful. I love the structure of it. Fincher has never been more on point with this style he has. This is exactly the kind of thing that Netflix really was promising all those years ago. Whenever they were coming out with things like House of Cards, it's just this directorial vision, this vision of one person. Let's put it out. Let's put artists out into the world because the conventional studios weren't going to give them a shot, and now because they realize that's not going to make anything, they are releasing Red Notice and all this bollocks, and it just ends up going, well, who cares? That's ultimately what it is. It's who cares? And what infuriates me is that this is such a great film, and this could have easily done. I wouldn't say it was going to be a Gone Girl blockbuster or a Social Network or I think Curious Case of Benjamin Button did okay, but I think it could have done at least a bit whenever I watched it for the first time on Netflix the day it came out.
Yeah.
Well, I watched it in the theaters, thankfully. I got to see it in the cinema first of all, and then when it came out on Netflix, it wasn't even on the homepage. I had to dig for it, and it wasn't in the top 10. It was buried. It was the day of release, and it was buried. I don't know if it was the same on any other country's Netflix.
Yeah.
It was just buried. So even in my best of list, I'm like, this is great, but how are you like? It's almost like, oh, well, nobody watched it. Nobody watched it because you didn't promote it.
Yeah.
You published a couple of trailers and you left it at that. You just didn't do, and then you release these, way after the films came out, you then start releasing the YouTube videos to say how it was made. You're not giving any audio commentaries. You're not offering that on your service. You're not going to sell it to a boutique distributor for a release on physical media. How do you expect these movies to live a long life if we're depending on you to just keep giving it to us? Because you could just remove it. As we've seen, that's probably the biggest fail this year is we've realized that, oh yeah, studios can just remove shit from existence and you're done. It is absolutely infuriating because this is fantastic.
Yeah.
I can't say enough good things about it, to be honest. Go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's an
It's
hour
good fun.
50. You probably get hour 45 with the credits.
Yeah.
It's got all the Smiths in it. It's got Michael
Yeah.
Fassbender's fantastic in it. It's got Tilda Swinton in it. It's probably got the best fight scene of the year. I watched John Wick Chapter 4 and it bests anything in that.
The one shot of the dog going through the window, that's all I can say. But like dog going through window, and it made me laugh more than like some comedies this year.
Absolutely fantastic. Oh, and that's the thing as well, because I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
It's also fucking funny.
It's very funny.
Fincher has never been more obvious with his snide, dry humor, because it's just so much. The amount of times that the supposed killer just absolutely fucks up is absolutely fantastic. This is like what you think is going to be pretentious voiceover hitman film, and it's just absolutely hilarious. And it won't be for everybody, and I know there's been mixed reviews on it to a certain extent. I honestly think it's his best film in years, mostly because he's only made one other film in the last 10. So absolutely fantastic.
Good job.
Fincher, if you're not going to bring back Mindhunter, make more of this.
Yeah.
I will happily watch one of these a year because it's so fucking good.
It was very entertaining.
Very
I did
entertaining.
enjoy it.
Tom prefers that was my Asteroid City, to be honest.
Yeah.
You felt things from that, and I felt.
Oh, you felt so many things from that.
I felt so many things from that, to the point where on my end of year, I don't get a Wrapped because I don't have Spotify. I have Apple Music. I'm one of those cunts. Well, to be fair, neither do you.
Yeah, yeah.
YouTube
Music.
You use the YouTube music.
I'm the person. What was it? Whenever they play the music like off key on an accordion, like that. That's me in the scenario.
Yeah, after the movie, after I saw it in the cinema, right up to the end of the year, which was a month and a half, the Smiths ended up being my most listened artist. Like 800 and something minutes, and I was like, oh
Yeah.
AJ, we don't beat up shit, and I'm still listening to them.
It became Jack's personality. I shit you not, for like a full week and a half. Like it's still a part of his personality now, but it was
Indeed.
like it was 100% for the while. Like I wouldn't have been surprised if he came in like a bucket hat and the sunglasses on, started doing yoga in the living room. I'd be like, "Yep, nope, this is Jack now."
I guess this is me now.
I guess this is me.
I could. It's lads. There's a specific kind of person this movie's made for, and that person is me.
It is Jack.
Because I know this for a fact, because I immediately stuck on the Samurai, which this film's based off, and it also fucking floored me, and it was made fucking 60 years ago.
Yeah.
It floored me as well. I gave that 5 stars. This gets 5 stars. Fucking watch it.
Good.
If you don't watch any other film, watch The Killer.
Yeah.
Sorry, Scorsese.
Yeah.
But it's just
Stop at the killer. You don't have to put the plural and then flower moon at the end.
you could watch The Killer twice. I'm just saying. You watch The Killer twice in the time it would take you to watch Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yes.
So that's our best. Sadly, we still have worst.
We still have worst.
So what's your worst?
So my worst is Fool's Paradise.
That was my second worst.
Yay!
Yay!
Wait. So what was your worst? Your worst was Five Nights?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we just swapped.
Yeah, we swapped that.
We just swapped.
That's not too bad.
That's hilarious.
Yes, Fool's Paradise is the worst film of 2023 for me, and second worst for Jack. And I think it's purely because, as we said, whenever
Fool's
talking about
Paradise would have been the worst in terms of like overall just
Yeah.
quality, because I didn't get anything from it. But I had to at least give it props for being Charlie Day's film. It didn't feel
Yeah.
like there was any interference. Five Nights at Freddy's felt like such a cash grab that I couldn't in all good conscience not give it the worst, because it's just it's the context, bro.
yeah,
But Fool's Paradise is garbage.
it is really bad,
horrendous.
and it was the idea for, like, as we were discussing with Meg 2, was like Meg 2 is bad, but it's also hilariously bad, where we could like enjoy it, and it kind of realizes that and ups the absurdity with it. Fool's Paradise is so bad that you don't get anything out of it, not even like a chuckle at how bad it is. It is
I feel like the rest of the podcast should just be us making Fool's Paradise is so bad I ran around it twice and got lost. Like, what?
it's so bad.
Those jokes would be better than Fool's Paradise. I totally
Yeah.
see. We watched his Criterion Closet,
Yeah.
and he brought up all these films that were inspiring him. Of course, like he was bringing up like The Kid and Chaplin and everything.
Yeah.
Like fuck did I see that? Like fuck did I see any of that inspiration in the film?
I know.
It honestly looks like a studio movie from 2009 that they did not release because it was too bad.
Yeah.
Like they were like, we're not making any money off this, can it? And I believe that's ended up what happened actually. Like it was meant to come out like a couple of years ago, and they just never found a distributor. If you can't distribute it, like the movie just sits there.
Yeah.
So it was sitting there for years, and then finally it just got released. And
No.
what a trashy.
Yeah, it was just bad all
And
the
not
way
even
through.
interesting.
Yeah.
Like I at least gave Rebel Moon the of everything with Netflix, but at least it had something, and I was like, I could
Yeah.
see Snyder, like whether you love him or hate him, like I could see him in it. I don't know if I saw Charlie Day in it, which made me go, well, who is Charlie Day as a filmmaker? Who is he
Yeah.
as an artist? Because I only really know him from
Always
Sunny. But he is a clear writer on that show. He's a
Yep.
creator on that show. So where was that comedic talent on this? I don't know if maybe it was the thing that it was a starring vehicle as well. Would it have been different if it had somebody else? I doubt it.
Yeah.
It had one of Ray Liotta's last roles, which was horrible.
Shame.
Just everything about it, man, was
Yeah.
just absolutely woeful. I barely remember it.
It might be one of those things as well of like, especially whenever filmmakers and other creatives have really strong inspirations that they really want to achieve. So whenever they get their first shot, they really want to do the thing that they're passionate about. But as advice is very often given in the video game industry is don't make your dream game first, because you will not have the skills necessary to achieve the game that you want to until a lot further down the line. And I feel like it's the same with this. Like Charlie Day was very clearly inspired by Charlie Chaplin and those classic silent films, that he wanted to do a film where the silent actor is now brought into modern day Hollywood and yet still reaches the successes despite the fact that he doesn't talk at all throughout the film. And it just didn't stick the landing with any of that premise in an interesting way.
There's a great quote, and it's essentially, I mean, there's only so many times we can say it wasn't funny,
Yeah.
but it just wasn't funny.
Nah.
And that's where it stops and starts. You know, with a comedy, if you're not laughing, for the most part, like, and that's the thing, there's no real emotional hook here. That a few comedies, something like, I'm not going to say Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is a laugh a minute, but it's got great characters, and it's got this heart to it that even when you're not laughing, you're so engaged in what this character is going through and what they do throughout the film. There's just nothing here. So whenever you're not laughing, you're just watching actors read lines, and say dialogue and walk from one end to the other, and then the movie ends and 2,000 people's names scroll on screen, and you go, I hope you all got paid.
Yeah, I hope you all got just good stuff out of this.
I hope the rap party was fun.
Yeah. But no. Well, we'll see the next time he attempts something. Maybe he'll learn from it, or maybe this is just put
Retreat back to Always Sunny and never leave.
Yeah. Retreat. There you go. Can't get burned again.
Can't get burned
But
again.
no, that's our top 3 and worst 3 of 2023. I wrote down a couple honorable mentions. If you, I believe you did as well, Jack.
I did as well.
Okay. Going to go right off the list. Mission Impossible was so good. We already talked about it on a podcast. We have the episode for it.
None of the ones that I'm have an honorable mention for, none of them are ones that we've talked about.
Okay.
But Mission Impossible, I agree. That was absolutely fantastic. I'm annoyed that we're going to have to wait until 2025
Yes.
for the next one. However, I can understand as well. I mean, I think Paramount is having an issue at the moment, and Cruise has already made a deal with Warner Brothers. So Cruise is clearly very pissed at the release strategy because it came out a couple of weeks before Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
And that just clearly overshadowed it. So did it do as well as the box office as it could have? Absolutely not.
No.
But at the same time, the movie only had a $290 million budget because it paid for its entire crew during the COVID shutdowns. So that to me is a corporate win.
Yeah.
That is a Cruise win. Cruise, my goodness, you're a Scientology weirdo, but God, you really do be saving them cinemas.
With the comic book movies starting to take a downturn, I actually feel like the spot is prime pickings for somebody like Tom Cruise to just step up to the mat with Top Gun Maverick 2, Mission Impossible.
I think that's the interesting thing is that I'm wondering, we've got the return of Top Gun Maverick, his biggest film.
Yeah.
The Mission Impossible franchise did take a bit of a hit, but it still made hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yeah.
It's still clearly a favorite in the audience's mind. I now just have to wonder, what about an original piece from Cruise? Because I'm thinking, see if he can propel an original, I'm not going to call it IP, but just an original film.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting idea that I think would spearhead a new era for films in the Hollywood way, which I'm very excited about. I think if anybody can do it, Cruise can.
Yeah.
If Cruise can't do it, we're all fucked.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty simple.
Yeah, that's fair. What are the ones you have?
I have throat cancer.
Yeah.
Sorry, lung cancer. Anyway, my honorable mention here is Infinity Pool.
Yes.
Which I watched all the way back at the beginning of the year, made by is it David Cronenberg's kid? I think it is. I think it's Cronenberg's kid. Alexander Skarsgård, totally fucked up. It's got Mia Goth in it. Don't look at Mia Goth's name, or actually do. Look up what she's done recently. It's icky. It's icky. I'm really sad about it. I'm not going to mention it here.
Okay.
Look, just type in Mia Goth on Twitter and you'll see all the news stories.
No.
Let's just say she's exactly like her character in this, apparently. Oof. But yeah, no, batshit crazy. It's exactly the kind of movie I love.
Yeah.
I know, because I turned around to you and went like, that's fucking great.
Yeah,
That's
I did.
fantastic.
I was on my computer in the same room and turned around at one point at what I believe is the most surreal, experimental piece of filmmaking that like takes place in the entire film, and I was like, whoa, this is really something.
And then you looked over at me and my cum face was there.
Jack looked like one of those people that are in like IMAX adverts where like he could feel the entire film.
I was, sorry, Tom. Sorry, the killer. That's my Asteroid City.
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
feeling things, bro. I was feeling things. What's next for you?
I have Saw X. Just phenomenal. Return to form.
Marvelous.
We have never seen a series. Oh, they're kind of similar to Scream, actually. Just return to form in such a strong way that they could just remove all the complicated bullshit that they had tried to set up over several years,
And yet,
of
not
installments.
Not reboot.
Yeah, not a reboot.
Not reboot. This takes place, and there's a post-credit scene, if you can believe it, in a fucking horror film that does tie this directly into what would technically come next, which is Saw 2, because it takes place between the first and the second one. I don't care that, John Kramer's looked that old for decades at this point. I don't care that Amanda, she's
ages up.
clearly in her 50s. Like, I honestly, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You don't need to de-age these people. It's you're immediately your brain's like, okay, between 1 and 2, fine. It's probably the one that's the most movie. So obviously, I think that could be a bit of a turnoff. But it's so clear to me that the people who made this wanted to do something a bit different, something maybe even a bit more traditional, but they still didn't leave. They were true to the character of Kramer, and they were also true to the spirit of Saw. And it was definitely better than Spiral, than that Jigsaw movie. Like, it's better than Saw 7. So I'll cut to the chase. It's my favorite Saw movie. I don't think much of a lot of them.
Valid.
But this one, overall as a movie, easily the best one. And it was one that I didn't even really... It wasn't about the traps.
Yeah.
The movie itself, it takes ages for there to be really any, traps in it. There's a bit of a fake out in the beginning, first 10 minutes, just to kind of get you in, kind of sell you. But other than that, it's a movie about Kramer dealing with the mortality, and something that we didn't really get to see. People always bring up Saw 2, but this really deals with it, and it's so intriguing, it's so engaging, and it's basically, it feels like a 70s revenge film in the best way. I absolutely loved it. It was probably the biggest surprise of last year, because I really wasn't expecting much from it.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, see, there you go. Tom is stunned.
It's just so great. I love it so much.
Tom was so amazed by this that he actually turned around. I was already halfway through the film, and he demanded.
Oh, yeah.
He demanded I rewound it.
It wasn't halfway. It was like 30 minutes. So like a third. But I was like, yeah, I want to watch you too. I want to watch it. Put it back to the start. I did.
You guys don't understand. You guys do not understand. Whenever Tom is facing away and he's on his computer and he's watching, 5 different YouTube videos at once.
Yes.
Nothing makes him turn around. He will turn around and see me watching Absolute Cinema and go, no, thank you, I'll watch Finster.
Yes.
That's just what he'll do. I will look at my battle pass.
Yes.
Saw X made him turn around. And for that, easy 5 stars.
Easy 5 stars.
Easy 5 stars. Whoa.
Good job.
What did you do?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10. Great job.
10 out of 10. Can't wait for Saw 11.
Yes.
Saw 11.
Oh boy.
Oh boy.
But yeah, you have that's my honorable mention. So if you have any more,
Oh, there we go. Okay, just the 2 for you?
just the 2.
I have a couple more, and that is A Haunting in Venice,
Oh yes.
which I was fucking shocked by. I quite like the Murderer on the Orient Express. I quite like that one. Death on the Nile was
kinda fell off.
was cabbage, and not just because it had an IDF soldier in Gal Gadot, a cannibal in Armie Hammer, and a sex pest in Russell Brand. That movie was cursed.
Yeah,
Who's next? Who's next? Kenneth Branagh? No,
Can it stop?
man. A Haunting in Venice is gothic. It's the framing of the film, the cinematography. Like this was gonzo.
Yeah.
This was great stuff. It reminded me of whenever you would see in the 70s, especially some like not quite giallo. It didn't have that color palette, but like the camera angles and where they would go with it. It just had this feeling of claustrophobia. Everybody was just tense. Just a very. It's not like it's not going to blow your mind, but especially coming from Death of the Nile. What a surprise.
Yeah.
I really, really enjoyed it. I couldn't have loved it more.
Do you remember the name of the kid that was in it? He was also the one in Belfast, wasn't it?
Jude?
Yeah.
Jude somebody.
Hold on. Faf for a bit. I'll double check. Faf, Jack. Faf.
Venus Tom's looking up things on his phone. I wonder what he's doing.
Well, I'm trying to find his name because it was like...
Jude Hill?
Jude Hill, yes. Yes. Yep, Jude Hill. You're bang on. You brought up at the end of that and also bringing up Belfast, like, he's going to be an actor to keep an eye out for.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Because kid actors famously suck.
Yeah.
Horrendous. He's great. Mm-hmm. He's absolutely fantastic. Were we watching something else recently where we were like, oh my God, that kid's great?
I'm trying to think.
It wasn't Ted. I know we watched the Ted show today.
Yes,
but I feel like that's not a kid. That's clearly he's probably like just a really young looking 19.
No, that's Mark
Wahlberg.
Wahlberg.
Oh my God, they de-aged Marky Mark. God, no wonder
No, they just put him in a room and didn't allow him to work out for 24 hours, and he just reverted into that.
All them steroids, man. All them steroids.
But no, there was something else. So we
there was another kid recently where we were like, oh God, that kid's really good.
Yeah.
Man, I feel like that's something we're going to see more of. It's just kids who are really, really fucking good.
Yeah.
Because I remember thinking the same thing of there was the girl in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Mm-hmm. She was
fantastic. Kids might just be getting good, man, because they'd be acting circles around some of the adults.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's because they just don't have the same like overthinking nature where they just like have a scene and they do it. But I'm happy to see that Branagh worked with him again.
Yeah.
So he clearly must have been. It wasn't just, oh my God, yeah, he's going to be a great star. Oh, I hate working with that kid. I'm never going to cast him again. He cast him again.
Yeah.
So he's. That's the other thing with Branagh. He seems to, and of course Jamie Dornan was in it as well. So if he likes you, he'll work with you again. And I thought
if you're Irish and he likes you, you're set for life.
Set for
Kenneth Branagh will
life.
hire you every day.
Good on you, Kenneth Branagh.
Yeah.
Good on you. Haunting Venice. Recommend. It's on Disney Plus. Go watch. And then my last honorable mention, just to close everything out, Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh,
Dungeons and Dragons.
Fair play.
Really good.
It was
really good. I think we said it when we were watching it, but this is what your blockbuster should be.
Yes.
It's fun. It's light on its feet. It doesn't take itself too seriously, but whenever the time calls for it does. Most of all, though, it's just got a really good script, and like I don't care about Dungeons and Dragons. But I don't do none of that dorky shit. Half kidding. But this was like it didn't feel like, because I remember watching Warcraft, and I actually find Warcraft pretty entertaining. But I could tell like, oh yeah, like after about the 17th establishing shot of like where we were, and it was something I couldn't pronounce. This film does not think, oh yeah, you need to be versed in Dungeons and Dragons. It's just a fantasy movie, and you're introduced in this world, and all of this stuff is already here, and it just goes, and this exists, and this exists, and this exists. We're not going to explain it. You don't need to know that. So we don't get the big long, in a time of turmoil. We don't get any of that. We don't need Ian McKellen describing all that. It's just a very fun, light on its feet movie. Bradley Cooper's best performance of the year.
Yes. As Small Man.
Absolutely terrific. Bang on. Just wanted to say, if you haven't seen Dungeons and Dragons,
fair play.
One of my faves.
I nearly passed up on that whenever I was going through the movies of 2023. I didn't even take the time to be like, did I enjoy it? And it's very good to bring it back, bring it into the light.
That's why you need a letterbox. So you can keep
do.
track.
I need a letterbox.
Well, you do have one.
I do. I just don't use it. I need to install it on my phone.
Get it on the phone.
Get it on the
Get it on the phone.
Okay. We'll do that. and then it'll be easier for next year's.
You just do what I do, just like flick through.
Yep, 2024 top 3, bottom 3. And now to wrap everything up, what was everybody in the comments is top 3 and bottom 3? Please let us know. Please give us engagement, and we want to do more stuff this year. So we're going to be working hard, working away, baby. We're just going to keep going and hopefully get some new videos out for you. So if you've had any ideas, if you have sponsorships, give us money. If you want to come on the podcast, get away.
Don't come on the podcast.
No, don't come on the podcast. Don't come near the podcast.
But we need to make it clear, okay? Because I was confused. I know Tom looks confused. Do not ejaculate on podcast.
Oh no, they're allowed to do that.
No, don't do it.
They're just not allowed to come near us.
No, you'll ruin your keyboard. Don't do that.
It's not my keyboard. I don't care.
No,
go for it.
No, they might sue us.
Go for it.
They might sue us for damages.
Come once, shame on me.
Tell you what,
come twice.
Give us money on our non-existent
Come
Patreon,
twice.
and then you can try and sue us.
Yes.
It'll cost you more than it'll cost us.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Fucking hell. I tried so hard not to break. You're a fucking abomination.
This podcast is a fucking nightmare.